The SL2 is supposed to come out sometime this year. I assume it's going to be a great camera. I assume that Leica have been listening to the customers like me, as well as others, and have implemented things into that new camera that will make it a better camera than the SL. Now, of course, some of those are going to be technological, and I really want to avoid talking about those because, well, it's going to be better. It's going to have a better sensor. It's going to be faster at focusing. It might even have a vibration reduction in camera. What really worries me is the camera's ergonomics, anatomics, and the basic UI. And I would like to see them address these 8 things. So let's check them out. The first thing I'd like to see Leica address is the skin on the camera. I want it to be rubber or some sort of silicone, perhaps even a serrated TPU. Currently, it's a low friction grip. It's solid, it doesn't peel away from the camera, but it also doesn't hold the hand completely solidly. And that's something they really could fix. All it would take would be a couple of millimeters of rubber, as I said, or TPU. The Canon 5D Mark IV's grip is also perhaps not quite as rubbery as the Nikon one, which is both good and bad. It doesn't rub the fingers in a weird way. You're not going to get sores on your fingers. And it's also not quite as grippy as the Nikon, but it's certainly a little step up above the Leica. And it was a great grip that I would like Leica to at least take into account when designing the new grip on their camera. The next thing should have been obvious to Leica from the start, and that is you don't, on an action-oriented, sport-oriented camera, put sharp edges on the bottom of the camera. When you have the camera on a sling or on your side and it bangs around in your hip, it's not banging around with rounded edges. It's banging around almost like a brick going back right into your bones. So this is trouble. It hurts. It's not a good design, and Leica really dropped the ball from a design standpoint because this is not anatomical at all. These edges are killer. Let's take a look at the Canon 5D Mark IV again. As you can tell, these edges are soft and round, and if they bounce against you, of course they're going to hurt. The camera itself is heavy, it's metal, but they're not going to sharply dig into your bones. The next thing I hope Leica do is decouple autofocus on functionality from the joystick. Now, the AF functionality is good, and it's implemented well, but I think it's implemented in the wrong place. It should be a separate and discrete button next to the joystick. The joystick in question, of course, is one of the best on the market, bettered only and possibly and maybe by Panasonic in the S1. Both of them have large, flat-tipped rubber nipples that are best in the business. But Leica's, with a single depress in the center, becomes autofocus on. Now, of course, that creates problems. If you accidentally press it, you've now autofocused. No autofocus on functionality should ever be included inside of a joystick that also selects where you're focusing. So Leica, let's move it off to the side. Why don't we move it next to the thumb stop, perfectly where any autofocus on button functionality should be. I'd really like to see Leica add direct and dedicated buttons for drive and metering modes, rather than having you map to a customizable button either function, or menu dive. It works, but if you want to use the camera to the ultimate speed and ultimate efficiency, you need direct buttons for those. Now, I don't want a dial that has only one function, it's like Fujifilm, but having something discretely programmable to do that function that you can cycle through a whole bunch of different options for is a really good idea. Canon's implementation of drive and metering is actually very good. You press the top button and then you move one of the dials. That lets you cycle through all the functions and you get there very quickly without having to move your finger or your eyes away from the camera and then access another menu. It's all visual, it's all quick, and it's all right there in the viewfinder. When I originally handled Panasonic's G9 or GH5 or whatever it was, and I had right next to my eye the functions for autofocus continuous, autofocus single, and manual focus on a switch with a thumb, I was like, dear God, why has no one else done this? The new S1, of course, has that functionality, and it is brilliant. You don't have to fumble around the front of the camera like you do with a Fujifilm or a Nikon, and you have most of the functionality there to depress for the autofocus on, as well as you have the menu items to then delve into deeper nuances of each of those functions The way it's currently done is through the menu, and I think this is a big problem. It means that you have to menu dive. Even if you map a customizable button to do the functionality, you still have to then navigate an on-screen menu. Leica could do this dedicated, and it would make the camera, which again is used for sports and other action and is a fast-acting camera, a much better option, and certainly something more realistic for other photographers who are looking for a fast camera. And the next point is the fact that on the Leica SL, the flap that covers all the interfaces, if you want to use HDMI or USB, or if you want to access the microphone or headphone controls, you have to open the entire thing and let the entire camera essentially be open to the elements. Another thing that boggles my brain is that Leica did not install in this large camera a discrete audio input and audio output. Rather, they rely on dongles. Dongles are not a great way to go forward for an action camera, and perhaps not even for a modular camera. Leica, it's time to put discrete audio input and audio output directly in your large, robust Leica SL body. Panasonic, Sony, and Fujifilm all have okay to decent flip screens for their cameras, both high-end and low-end. It'd be great if we got a flippy screen out to the side, out to the bottom, somewhere that allows you to use your camera at weird angles in some weird way that will allow that person to use the camera in a way you didn't imagine them to do it, and maybe they didn't either. But they're finding a new way to use your camera and like it. What I covered in this video are things that I think would make your camera better to use apart from all the technology inside. Things that will make it easier for a person to take a photograph, to take a video, and to get on with their camera without pain in their hip and with the best solid grip possible from anyone. If anyone can do it on the market, you can, so let's get to it. And everyone else, I'll see you later.